Alrighty, so Season of the Risen is just about over. The final week is wrapping up, and I've had time to formulate my thoughts into a kind of complete video. And before people say it, I know Dado already made a video and mine is coming out like a day after. I'm not trying to copy him, it's just I was already working on it and it took a minute, so yeah. So Season of the Risen is the season that accompanies my favorite Destiny expansion, and it has some things already going for it. So without further ado, let's actually get into what makes this season both amazing and, in my personal opinion, fall short in a couple of areas. The story of Season of the Risen begins with a meeting in the tower from Kaido referring to the attack on her Cabal back on Mars. Oh yeah, Mars is back, by the way. We halt her hostility upon us for the moment as Zavala informs her of the Witch Queen's lucent brood, bleeding the throne world into physical space. They agree to set aside their problems for the time being, and the story will continue from there. I really like this intro cinematic. It both informs us of how the Cabal will react to conflict, as well as how they are willing to set aside those conflicts for a new, greater threat. This is a real big step in the grander story of Destiny, but I do have my gripes as far as the rest of the season is kind of concerned. Let's begin with my biggest issue. The story is 4 weeks long, and to me that is the biggest problem. I'm going to call back to Season of Arrivals for the moment. Season of Arrivals showed the arrival of the Black Fleet, how people reacted to it, and how it affected the places the pyramid were set up, and how we were going to combat the fleet going forward. The battle for information took place over the course of multiple months, and this was due to the fact that the Season of Arrivals was affected by the delay of Beyond Light, and they knew this was going to happen. To clarify, the main quest line did not stretch out this long. That would be a little too long for a main quest. However, the build-up for the arrival of the pyramids, lore entries, dialogue from Arius, the prophecy dungeon, all of this compounded into a story experience that kept me guessing. Now, this isn't me saying big story good, short story bad. I think short stories, if executed properly, are better than longer stories. However, my biggest gripes come from Season of the Risen not setting up a clear villain so that it has nowhere to go when the story is done. So more on that in a minute. With the story of Risen stopping dead at the halfway mark, it allows for a lot of dead air in the story, making events feel artificial, unnatural, and just hit less impactful when they occur. When Crow accidentally killed the Scion emissary and Saladin sacrificed his duties to the tower for Crow to live, that was amazing. But the impacts of that decision will only be seen months from that point, meaning it impacts far less than it would if it happened at the end of a season as a bit of a cliffhanger. Speaking of cliffhangers, this season doesn't have one. There is no progression to a bigger narrative. Normally, seasons will attempt to build up hype for the next big bad, the next event, or really the next alliance. Season of the Risen just said what it wanted to say, and left. There is the dangling thread of Callus, I know, in the Vox Obscura missions, so we'll see where that goes, but it's not clear enough to the point where it's a certainty that he will come back, which is fine for theories and stuff like that, but for the ending of a season, you want to have something that keeps my attention for the entire season, and having it stop within the first month just leaves me disinterested to the story and just waiting for the next one instead of engaging with it, theorizing about it, reading lore entries. I want to be able to theorize and discuss and think about it, but when you give me so little detail to work off of, it's kind of hard to do that. However, even with my gripes, I still think the story of Risen was spectacular, and I honestly can't wait to see what they do with Crow, Saladin, the Vanguard, the Cabal Alliance. It leaves a lot to be desired, but in other ways, it executes on much bigger ideas that work flawlessly. Crow was done spectacularly. I think the fleshed out character that is Saladin, I didn't feel myself caring about Saladin before this season, so this really helped make me care about him a little bit more. and then quickly rip him out from the story. So we'll see how that goes, but I don't know. For them to build up Saladin as such a cared about character after so long and then just straight rip him out is kind of weird to me, but we'll see where it goes in the future stories. Let's talk about the seasonal activity. The seasonal activity for this season is PsyOps Battlegrounds, and we've already played this before. As you might have guessed, this is a spin on the Battlegrounds activity created back in Season of the Chosen. However, there is enough to help me say that I like it a little bit more. We have additions like the Lucent Hive that immediately make gameplay more chaotic and fun, as well as enemy density being large enough to make it fun, but not overwhelming. Neat little additions like the Psionic Spear are also a nice touch, and throwing them around never really got old. And my god, the level design. Just wow. How do you do this consistently all the time? The way Seventh's Throne world bleeds into normal space that we already know adds this feeling of weird discovery and nostalgia, at least for me. I don't know if I'm just being dumb, but it's cool. The bending mindscape is breathtaking as well, with structures floating and twisting in accordance with the mind of the hive that we're invading. It all adds up to make PsyOps Battlegrounds my favorite take on the formula that Battlegrounds created back in Season of the Chosen. Now let's talk about what everyone is really here for. The loot. Let's talk about the loot. They made some changes to the system, not only because of the addition of crafting, but also just to make getting loot not as forceful as it used to be. 2 new resources were added to access the new gear: Psychogenic Intel and Umbral Energy. Psycho Intel is used to open special chests at the end of PsyOps to earn the big boy rewards, and Umbral Energy is used to focus Umbral engrams into deep sight weaponry, armor, and whatever else you want to focus stuff into. There's not much else to say other than it being a good replacement for the hammer charge system in Chosen. We are no longer required to play the seasonal activity specifically to acquire these resources, so you can just earn them by playing the game as you would, which makes earning the seasonal gear more laid back, and when you do end up getting something, it does feel fresh instead of forced. It also makes PsyOps feel more of a fun activity since you're not being forced to grind it over and over. So that's a good thing. So overall, good. I like the system. Keep doing it, please. There is some general talk I'd like to get into about Umbral engrams, but I'll leave that for a separate video depending on how they handle them next season, so we'll see how that goes. But overall, that's it. I think I've covered everything I'd want to. I think Season of the Chosen, Season of the Risen is great for what you get, and compared to its expansion paired counterparts, it's actually really good. Unlike Undying. Oh boy. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure to leave a like and or dislike if you feel so inclined to do so, and make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with the stuff that I post. I try to post every single week. So with that, again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.